Thanks for coming, Will. So to start off, what is a moment from your childhood that helped you shape who you are today?
A moment from my childhood. What counts as childhood? Is it like early childhood or
You can decide. It's really up to you. What was it like from your youth? Something that really sh shaped who you were, who you became to be.
yeah, okay. So I'm actually going to give you a moment that happened to me in college.
Mm,
Because and this is going to sound really strange. So when I was a kid, I was good at some things and bad at some things, right? Like most people. And, the things I was good at, I was quite good at, and I sort of succeeded at them automatically. And the things I was bad at, I was bad at. And I never got the idea all through my childhood that you could actually improve at something. Um, like I kind of just
mm,
thought that your capabilities were what they were. And I believed that for a very long time. And it was a really, really bad thing to believe. Because if you believe that, then you never grow and you can never actually change.
mm,
And basically, one of the things I was always good at was math. And when I was in college, I took a very difficult math class. And it was the first one that like really challenged me. And I thought, basically my first thought was like, oh, I guess I'm just not that good. I guess I just can't do this. And then I remember one particular day where I had this homework assignment. The class was in Galois theory. And I had this homework assignment and I was sitting in the library listening to music and thinking about it and thinking about it. And I was like ready to give up. And then I just decided I'm not going to give up. And I just thought about it for like another 45 minutes. And then I got the answer. And it was
mm.
just like this like total revelation. I was like, wait a minute. If I try hard at something, and this sounds stupid, right? Like most people know this from when they're 5 years old, but I
Yeah,
didn't. Like I suddenly realized like, oh, actually when you try at things, you can improve at them. You can get better. And that change of perspective where I suddenly stopped thinking of most abilities as innate or inborn and
mm.
started thinking of your abilities as something that you could consciously cultivate and grow at through force of will. Um, I don't know. That was like a major turning point in my life. And after that, pretty much everything changed.
I see. Uh, was there like a reason you chose to study math and philosophy in college at Yale, or was it just a professional interest, or did your values or beliefs play any part in the decision?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been somebody who really wanted to understand deeply how the world works at the very bottom.
Mm,
And, it seemed like math and philosophy were two different ways of getting at that question. Um, like I was when in high school I was good at physics and I liked science and all these things and I was like, but okay, but why? Like why does the law of gravitation work the way it does? Like why is general relativity there? Like does it have to be that way or could the
mm.
universe be set up a different way? And like, you ask why enough times and eventually you get to the bottom. And the disciplines that we have, which try to go to the very bottom, are, I think, math and philosophy. And so they both held a lot of interest for me.
I see. Uh, as you grew up in Hong Kong, how do you think like the outside culture and values like influenced you? Were there any differences from what you were used to seeing, hearing, or doing like at home? Or
Yeah, a ton. Chinese culture is it's different in a lot of ways from American culture. And it's also similar in some ways. And Hong Kong culture is its own very unique thing, right?
Mm.
People in Hong Kong are extremely commercially minded. They like, to make deals. They are very busy. They walk very fast. They're obsessed with food. They're always eating. And, when they're eating one meal, they're talking about what their next meal is going to be.
Oh,
Um, it's like, so it's actually quite special in a lot of ways. And yeah, a lot of this was very different from my family, which is American, and which had a more typical American culture. But there were
mm.
very few Americans there when I was there. And
Oh,
so, most of my classmates were either local Hong Kong Chinese or they were from the British Empire, various parts of it.
oh.
Um, Yeah, we were pretty much the only Americans we knew. There were a couple others, but not a lot.
Yeah. Did your perceptions and or beliefs like change when you moved to the US?
Um, it's hard to say because I moved to the US right around when I turned 13 or 14, which is also the age when your perceptions and beliefs are changing a lot anyway,
Yeah.
right? Like you suddenly are like thinking about, how should society be run and how should the world be organized and what is my place in it and all this stuff in like a much more um conscious way. So it's a little
Mm,
bit hard to sort out the difference you know, between moving to the US and just the normal process of entering adolescence.
mm,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think America as a society, as a civilization, like this is a little bit less true than it was back then. It was very true back then.
mm.
Um, Believes that it is the like main character of history right now,
Oh,
right? And that means that everybody kind of thinks about their place in the world a little bit differently. Like, and Hong Kong in particular, like this is less true in mainland China. Mainland China also believes that it's the main character of history right now.
mm,
Hong Kong feels like it's a backwater, right?
oh,
It's actually not. It's like a very dynamic, very economically successful place. But you know, as a culture, as a civilization, it's a representative of something that is passing away from the earth. Like classical Cantonese culture is getting swamped by like the dominant mainland Chinese culture. Like the vestiges of the British Empire are like going away, right? And so like all the like origins of what Hong Kong is are kind of fading away, even as it's becoming more economically successful. And so I think like the attitude towards life and towards like what is the future going to be like is just very, very different there. And today it's even more different, right? Like
mm.
today, people there think that there's no hope and no future, and they're all like fleeing to Canada, and Britain. And so it's like, in that sense, it's very different.
I see. Uh, as you went to St. Albans, do you think that St. Albans changed you or your values in any way? Like, how and like by what exactly? Do you think it was good or bad, or do you think it was like anything like thought provocative or even maybe negative?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I think it did in some ways,
Mm,
and I think they were mostly good. Um, I think St. Albans made me more competitive and it made me more ambitious.
mm,
And then in the more like definitely positive way, I think it did make me feel more of a responsibility, like noblesse oblige, like, a responsibility to the world to like do something good, to use my talents for something real. Um, I think that's all pretty good. I think like the flip side of that is like, I think St. Albans tells you in 100 ways, you know, consciously and unconsciously, that it's your job to rule the world. And that
oh,
can create a certain kind of arrogance and a certain kind of entitlement, right? Um, which, can have some positive effects in your life, but can also be negative, right?
yeah,
And so I think like, I think that's probably the biggest negative. Um, I think St. Albans also has very good like esprit de corps. At least it did when I was there. It
mm,
felt everybody eventually felt found like a band of people or a group that you could feel real fellowship and real like connection with. And
yeah.
so I think it made me less solitary and more friendly than I had been when I got there.
I see. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I say there is still like a esprit de corps. Like, there are like many like really tight groups, which like I just feel like the friendships will last for a really long while.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still like, 20 years later, like really good friends with some of my classmates at St. Albans. Like I see
Yeah,
them, like I text with them, like, every week. Like that's
yeah,
pretty crazy.
it is. Yeah. Uh, what led you to start your own company, Antimatter? I mean, Antithesis. Were there any like challenges you had to overcome in creating a company? Not just
Huh.
financial, but like also others such as like psychological, ethical, self-belief, like finding
Sure.
the correct partners, like stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll start with why I did it. Um, I realized at a certain point, number one, I don't like having a boss. And so I thought, okay, well, easy solution is just don't have one, and I'll be the boss. And actually, it turns out that's a terrible solution because when you have no boss, when you are the boss, what it actually means is that your boss is yourself. And I'm a much worse boss than any of my previous bosses, but I didn't know that at the time. Um, the other reason I did it was every previous company I worked at, I would always work really hard and I would always be very focused and very dedicated and very
Yeah,
committed, almost to the level of somebody who's like starting the company. And at
yeah,
a certain point, I was like, well, if I'm going to work that hard and be that committed anyway, I should get the benefit as well as the
mm,
drawback, right? And so it seemed like a
yeah,
natural thing to do. Um, but it was still a very scary thing to do. At the time that I did it, I had two kids already. My wife was 7 months pregnant with our third kid. And in order to start the company, I had to move across the country. And, I had absolutely no idea if the idea would work and absolutely no idea if, I was quitting a really good job that I had at Google. Um, you know, I had enough savings to live for a few months or a year or something, but like, who knows what happens after that, right?
yeah,
So it definitely is a little bit scary, but I think most of the scariness actually is in your head. If you think about it, right, in order to achieve a really, really good outcome or to become very successful 400 years ago or 500 years ago, you had to get on a boat and you had to like sail for months across the ocean and probably die. And you'd get like malnutrition on the way and you'd get some horrible disease. And then you'd get to some island where there's like people who hate you and want to kill you. And then you'd have to kill them instead. And then you'd
yeah,
have to like not die of malaria. And you know what I'm saying? Like, whereas these days, you like, instead of going to an air conditioned office building, you go to like a different, smaller, less nice air conditioned office building. And you do something which could have some financial cost, but you're not
mm,
going to lose your arm. You're not going to lose your leg. You're not going to die.
yeah.
The risk has like never been lower. Like the only risk is inside your head because you're afraid that if you do it, you're going to look like an idiot and everybody's going to laugh at you. And so what you need to do is just like get over that and not worry about looking like an idiot and not worry about people laughing at you. And then you're free. Then you can do whatever.
I see. Yeah. Continue on that kind of like topic. How do you think your like values or maybe like beliefs influence your decisions with your company? Yeah. Antithesis.
The decisions like within the company.
Yeah, within the company. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, I think we're a pretty unusual company in a few ways. Like
Mm,
um we don't hire people who are jerks. And
mm,
everybody says that, but we actually mean it. Because like life is too short to work with people who are gonna ruin your life and who are gonna make you unhappy. And
mm,
it's especially important when you're the owner of a business that you protect all of your employees who might have to work with a person like that, right? And
yeah.
so no matter how good somebody is, if they're a jerk, if they're unkind or cruel or belittling to their coworkers, like we fire them immediately. Um, we also try and really hire people with a very long-term view who are like, I want to make this super successful. I'm not going to like cheat or cut corners or like, do things that make me look good in the short term, but that have a long-term cost. So we really are optimizing for that and try pretty hard to do that. And then, we also just take care of people. Like, we've had employees who've had very difficult life situations that made it impossible for them to work for a few months, or they had to take care of a family member who was very sick, or or whatever. And I think a lot of companies in that situation, they just like fire you, right?
Yeah.
And we've just never done that because, you know, because we believe in being loyal to people. And
Yeah.
we think that if we show loyalty to people and take care of them, then they will be loyal to us. And, that's just a better way to live. It's a better way to have a company.
Yeah.
And it costs us a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think and my co-founder, my business partner and I were like very clear from day one that that was the kind of company we wanted to run. And I hope we're able to keep it that way.
Yeah. Feeding would be like basically like family. I feel like the good chat. Uh, what do you think like has been like one of your hardest choices that you had to like make so far? What do you think? Like, what was your decision process when selecting the right path? Like, what was your like criteria and choice that you made?
At work,
I mean, any just like one of the hardest like choices you have to make. Maybe like in life in general.
hmm. I mean, I've made a lot of very hard choices. Trying to think of one that is interesting. So one thing that's really hard, I'll give you an example from work. One thing that's really hard is when you hire somebody to do a particular job and they're doing a good job, and then the company gets bigger and they're no longer the best person for the job,
Mm.
right? What do you do with that person?
I
Like,
mean, yeah,
you hope that they can step it up and get better, but maybe they don't, right? Maybe they like are still functioning at the level that is okay for a 5-person company and not okay for a 50-person company. And so, you know, how long do you give them? Like how hard do you try to improve their skills or give them training or whatever before you say, you know what, sorry, you're not doing a good job. I need to bring in somebody else who can do this better than you. And you can learn from them. I'm not going to fire you,
mm,
right? But like they're going to be your boss now.
mm,
Um, that's that is very hard. And if you do it wrong, that person will totally feel betrayed and undercut, and it'll
yeah,
be very bad for you and bad for them. Um, Doing it right requires really convincing them, you know,
yeah,
that it'll be better for them as well if you go this way, and that can be pretty challenging.
yeah. Uh, so, did this like decision like come in your life and like what did you decide to do in it?
Um, I mean, we've had to do this a few times as the company has
Few
grown.
times.
Yeah, and
Okay.
sometimes the original person has been able to step it up and to improve and to become the person we need them to be. And sometimes we have had to bring in somebody else. And, it's been like these are both these are both ways that we've gone. It just depends on where you're at.
Oh, what do you think were like the most significant challenges, like maybe practical or value based, you faced that most people wouldn't expect you to have faced in your life? And like, how did you solve these problems?
Um, so one that maybe not a lot of people know about is about 9 years ago when I was working at Google, right when I'd started there. I was riding my bicycle home from work one day and I got attacked by a group of muggers who wanted to take my phone. And they pushed me off my bike and I broke my leg very badly, broke it in like
Oh,
several different places. And basically went to the hospital. There were all kinds of weird complications. And they were like, look, we can put your leg back together. We're going to put a bunch of metal into it, but you're never going to walk properly again. You're never going to like, be able to run or. jump or lift weights, which are all things I enjoyed. Um, and I, it took me several months to get out of a wheelchair. And then when I did, like initially they were right. I couldn't walk properly. I had a cane and everything. And I just decided that I didn't like that story and it wasn't gonna go that way. And so I worked on like the seventh story of this building in California in Sunnyvale. And what I did was every single day, instead of taking the elevator, I walked up all the stairs.
Oh wow.
Incredibly painful. And then every single day, instead of taking the elevator, I would walk down all the stairs, which was even more painful. And initially, I would be like holding the railing with like two hands, going up. And people would be like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, do you need me to help you?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." And, but I'm very stubborn. And
Yeah.
so, after like a few months, it was really painful. After a few months, I could do it like with one hand on the railing. And then like eventually I could do it not holding the railing. And then eventually, like last week, actually, I was about to miss an airplane and I ran across the whole airport terminal. Like I can run again, which the doctors told me I would never ever do. So, I guess maybe the lesson I took from that is that like being very stubborn and being willing to endure suffering is actually an incredible strength if you know the right time to use it. Um, like, when the doctor tells you something or when you get most advice, that advice is assuming that you're probably not willing to put up with the discomfort that it would take to get a different outcome. But if you are willing to, you can actually do something different.
Wow. Yeah. That's impressive. Yeah. Uh, everybody has like different communities in which they live and interact. Like maybe like your children, like parents, friends, like your coworkers, or maybe like the parish. Are there differences in how you apply your values in each of them? You think?
Mm. Um, no, I try to be the same person in all of them,
Mm,
even though they're very different worlds, right?
mm,
And I actually think that the fact that they're so different is really nice in some ways. Like at work, for example, like I'm the boss, and that's fun in certain ways, but very exhausting, and actually like spiritually exhausting, um, in other ways. And then like at church, I sing in the choir, and I'm not the boss. I'm like the lowest of the low, right? Everybody tells me what to do. But like that's great. It's like so good for me to be have a part of my life where I'm just getting told what to do and I'm following orders. And that teaches me how to also be better at giving orders back at work because I see what it's like from the other side and I understand what it's like from the other side. Um, so, and then at home, right, obviously like with my kids or whatever, I'm the boss again. And then when I'm hanging out with friends, I'm equals, right? And so
yeah.
like all of these different places, you're the same person, but your relationships with the people are very, very different. And your role in these dynamics is very, very different. And I think getting to experience life from all these different angles is actually really good for you. And if you can fit it all together into a single picture, it helps the whole picture become more real.
Yeah. Uh, how do you think your values and beliefs like influence the decisions you make in your daily life? Is there a process you follow when dealing with difficult decisions or
Uh, I mean, it's very simple usually. Like a difficult moral decision, like, I ask myself what the church teaches. Uh,
mm,
I ask myself what story, if I were telling it to my grandkids, would I want to tell them?
mm,
Or like, what would I be doing if the people I love the most in the world were watching me make this decision?
mm,
Like, what, you know? And I truly do believe that people are often watching you when you don't realize they are. And so this is actually a pretty good heuristic to have in your head anyway.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that like, especially when you're raising children, providing a righteous example to them and, you know, like the power of them seeing you doing the right thing in a
Mm,
difficult situation, that will have an effect on their life forever, you know?
mm,
And so you know, I think when I have a very difficult decision, what I try and do is try to take myself out of it.
mm,
And I try to imagine that I'm just reading a book. I'm reading a story about this guy named Will. And now I'm on this chapter where he has this decision. And I ask myself, if I were writing this story, if I were, or if I'm on the outside reading the story, what would I hope he would do? Like what would he do that would make an objective, impartial person think the best of him? You know,
yeah,
because someday I hope I'm telling that story.
mm. I see. Yeah. So like taking yourself out of the decision and like looking from the standpoint, basically. Kind
Yeah.
of on that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
anyway, kind of on that topic, like, do you think you're trying to like to influence like the values of your children deliberately? If so, like how and like what do you think is more critical for you in their future, like their values or their success?
Oh, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like 100%. And like definitely their values are more important. Like I know some really successful people who in the eyes of the world, like you've heard their names, right? Like who everybody thinks are like really rich, really famous, really happy, and they're
Yeah,
miserable. They're like just totally miserable. And then I know some really poor people, carpenters, sailors, who are very happy people because they, you know, because they're happy with themselves and they understand the world and they understand their place in it. And like, I like I think leading a good life, and a good life means a righteous life, is like 1,000 times more important than like where you go to college or how much money you make or anything like that. I mean, no question. And and yeah, we try very hard to influence our children when it comes to this stuff. And I think the biggest influence you can have is just the example. It's your actions, not what you tell them. It's just what you do. It's what you do, and it's who their peers are, right? It's who you surround them with. Um,
yeah,
I think that's 90% of it, and the rest of it is, you know, is like icing on the cake.
I see. Yeah. Uh, going even further, if you could change one thing about how people see you, what would it be and why?
Uh, how people see me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know the answer to that. Um, the reason I'm having trouble answering that question is I don't think very much about how people see me.
Yeah.
I don't worry very much about it. I truly believe that like whether you're doing the right thing or whether you're happy is something that's inside you. And that the picture that the world sees is like random. Like it could be good, it could be bad, but like it's not really connected to reality often. And so like maybe this is a weakness of mine. I've just never really cared that much
Mm,
how other people think of me. And I think that's usually a strength. I think that enables you to do things that might be unpopular or might, you might worry are going to make you look silly. Like if you just don't care, it helps a lot.
I see. Has someone ever said something to you that really stuck with you in maybe a good or maybe a bad way?
Yeah, I mean, tons of things.
Like, what is maybe one that really sticks out to you?
Okay. I'll give you a funny one. Um, when I was younger, I had a reputation for being difficult to get along with
Mm,
sometimes. Um, I I sort of didn't suffer fools lightly, and I didn't hold back my opinions very much. And I forget who this was. It was like my boss, or it was some kind of mentor. Maybe it was a teacher. Maybe it was an older student.
mm,
I don't remember who it was. I think it may have been my boss. He just looked at me one day and he was like, Will, just because you think somebody is an idiot, you don't have to tell them. you, you don't have to say it out loud. You're allowed to keep it to yourself. And I was like, oh, like that had never occurred to me. Um, it's like, I don't know, very funny in retrospect, but that made a pretty big difference to my life.
yeah. Oh, what's something that you maybe like believed in when you were younger that you see like very differently now?
I mean, the biggest, most obvious one is my faith, right? Like I was a pretty serious atheist uh, for most of my teenage years and the first part of my 20s. Now I'm now I'm an Orthodox Christian, and that was obviously a pretty big change.
That's a big change, yeah. How do you hope people will remember you? Or what kind of impact do you want to have on the world?
Um, I think the biggest impact, I think the impact that you can control and that you can truly hope for is the impact that you have on the people who you encounter day to day.
Mm,
Like there's a lot of people who worry a ton about their like legacy in 1,000 years. And like, yeah, that'd be cool. I would love to be in a history book in 1,000 years. That sounds great. But like most people who are in history books 1,000 years later are like really bad people. Like, I and probably even if you're really amazing and awesome, like no, everybody will forget you. Like the thing that you can actually affect is like you are walking down the street and you see somebody having a really bad day, like, do you stop and help them? Like,
mm,
your friend calls you and is like, oh my God, I'm having this huge problem. Like, are you a good friend? Do you help them? Like, your wife is having some problem. Like, do you help her? Like, like that stuff, it just adds up. Like,
yeah,
I want, I just want everybody who I encounter in life to think of me as like, yeah, he stopped and helped. He tried.
yeah.
Um, I think that's the thing you can control.
I see. If you could teach everyone just one thing that you've learned from your experience or maybe your life, what would that one thing be?
Good one. It's that you can just do things.
Mm,
Like you don't need to wait for permission. You don't need to like get some certification or degree. You can actually just see a thing that should be done and just do it. You can just like I don't know. I this is I think one of the great strengths I've had is like when I see a way that I want to be different or a way that I want the world to be different, I just do it. I don't ask anybody. Um, I've changed careers a few times, didn't go back to school, didn't take any
mm,
formal classes. I just like read books and like taught myself a new thing and I just went and did it. Like, I started a company, you know, because I was like, there should be a company that does this. There is no company that does it. Okay, I guess I'll start one. Like
mm.
you can just do stuff.
Yeah, it's a good one. Um, who or like what like has influenced your beliefs like the most and how do you think?
My beliefs about what, just in general,
In general, maybe like something important to you or
like living people who I've met, or like books I've read, or what.
anything. It can be a book,
Um,
it can be a person, text.
yeah, I've had a number of teachers, including some at St. Albans, by the way,
Mm.
who've had huge effects on my beliefs about the world. In college, a number of my math professors had very significant effects on me, not just about math, but like about life and everything. Um, I you know, Dostoevsky, like is my
Uh,
one of my favorite authors. Like his books have had a huge impact on the way I see the world. Um, you know, there's a lot. Like there's a lot of people I've met and things I've read that have changed who I am. Like I think if I went back and met myself like 20 years ago, I'd be like, who are you? Like what, I'm like very different now.
So, what is one thing that you would have done differently if you started over again? Would you have wanted to start over again if you even had this chance, or
Yeah, I think I started saying this last time, but basically, like, I feel like I would be so worried about the butterfly effect causing me to miss out on one of the really awesome things that happened in my life. For
Mm,
example, being my wife or something like that, that I
yeah,
would be a little paranoid about starting over again. Like, I feel like overall things have turned out pretty well.
mm,
Um, so, you know, obviously, like there are a lot of lessons that you learn and that you pick up along the way that could, you know, you feel like if you were doing it all again, you could make better choices. Like I feel all
mm,
the time, like if I was starting a company again for the first time, I would
yeah,
have like a way smarter, better idea of what I was doing. But, I never want to start a company again. So
yeah,
I'm just gonna have to give advice to other people, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff that I would do differently, but I think overall
mm.
I'm pretty happy with how things went.
All right, that was it. All right, thanks so much for coming. Yep.
Yeah, man. Thanks for this is fun.